what are some of the ways that you help a venue, maybe in a very congested market, really stand out?
We always start first with strategy. And I think, a lot of people just immediately want to go to the design. But making sure that you understand what their values are, what the experience is going to be, what the style of the property is, and all of these things. But also, what is it like when you're a couple there? Experience is everything, from start to finish.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What's up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX, and on this show, we talk to both professionals and wedding venue owners, talking about everything to do with venues, the wedding and events industry. And so today we have a very important topic that I think is now more important today than it really ever has been, with how the attention is centered and really focused on our phones and on the media devices that we're constantly using. And of course, I'm talking about the marketing and the branding and all of the pretty images and everything that we put online about ourselves. It's the way that we address the world and invite them into our world. And so today, I am so excited to welcome Heidi Yarger on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your show.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. You have an incredible marketing and branding agency, and I have so many questions for you. I want to dive in and I want to mix it between tactical stuff that people can implement right away and just kind of some overall mindset stuff that we can take with us to kind of reconsider or think about how we want to position ourselves from a marketing and branding perspective. Before we jump into that, though, I'm a sucker for an origin story, and I want to know why branding, why marketing, how did you get into this world? I know you work a lot with authors as well, but why the events industry? Why marketing and branding?
Yeah, so I started Spitfiregirl in 2000, but I've actually been a designer for 30 years, which is insane because I know I do not look a day over 24. But for the past 16 years, I like to say I've been the not-so-secret weapon for some of the top wedding industry leaders. So, I've worked with, we have a team. We've worked with luxury event planners, photographers, videographers, florists, invitation designers, venues, of course. And even, some of the top blogs like Style Me Pretty, Ruffled, and Rocky Mountain Bride. And we love telling stories through obviously visuals, branding, personal branding as well. And so it's just been a great experience working with some really amazing couples. And of course, I got married in 2009. So it's been interesting to see the industry change from when I got married to now as well.
Absolutely. And it's wild in that time period how much it's changed. I don't think anyone in the industry, as you're head down focusing on your couples and things like that, you maybe don't realize how much it is changing because you're just changing with it as it does evolve. And, but there are new tools that we're using, and there are new platforms that we're on and new ways to communicate. And I found it's the people who are willing to adapt are the ones that are, kind of continue to be successful rather than the ones that just say, oh, this is the way that we've always done it.
Right.
So
right, exactly.
I'm curious though, for you, what about the marketing and the branding? Where did you've been in this world for a while now, obviously. Where did that start? Did that start kind of early on? You knew that you wanted to do this, or is this something that you fell into after you were in corporate America? Kind of give me a little bit of your background.
Okay, well, I have a good story though. So obviously my business name is Spitfiregirl. And I, like I said, I started many, many years ago back in Boston. And I've always been an artist. And as I became a designer, I ended up working for this super toxic boss. Have you ever had a boss that just yelled at you constantly? I don't know if you've worked with anybody else besides yourself, but My boss was so awful. And so one day I just decided, I was like, that's it. I'm done. And I packed up and I moved to San Francisco without a job, without anything. And I told myself, this is the last day I will ever work for anyone else. And Spitfiregirl was born. And I've basically not stopped since. I've been working ever since. That awful experience gave me all the gumption to just start my own business.
I love it. And that's the name. Was the name? Yeah. Did it kind of occur to you as part of that process? Or you just realized like, hey, this is a bit of your personal identity, and that's kind of where it came from?
Yeah, from the name itself, my grandmother Lucy always used to say, "You're such a Spitfire. You're such a Spitfire." So it's a little nod to my grandma.
I love it. Well, today we're going to dive into marketing, like I said, branding. Those are such general terms, so I kind of want to focus the conversation a little bit for us. And in doing so, I want to talk to kind of two different groups of people. I'm just going to take a second to kind of set the stage for this conversation, because I think I've talked to marketing folks on this channel before, and there are certainly tactical things we can talk about with social media and, okay, post this, and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and, Reddit is really, having a moment, I think, in some different ways on just like different blogs and like, where should I be? Where, then venue owners and people in an industry. But I want everyone to consider having a budget, like a real budget for creating your virtual building is just as important for having a budget for your physical building. And so could you help us with kind of forming who that team should be, what type of budget that you should have when you're going to build a website and hire a copywriter? And can you kind of give us like, what is budget? Obviously people can DIY, but what is budget? What's kind of mid-market? And then what is a really premium designer or branding firm like yourself going to do?
So, like I said, we've worked with just about everybody. So I would say we are at the higher end of working with an agency when it comes to marketing and branding. If you are a small business and you're just starting out, and, obviously you can DIY stuff. There is ChatGPT, there's, Visual Instructor, there's all sorts of tools, Squarespace or, even like GoDaddy, and all of those things will help you get out the door. I would not say that they're going to make you that successful, because typically there's not a lot of, you're just kind of letting technology do the work for you, and you're not telling the story of your venue in the most appropriate way. Now, later on, when you have a little bit more of a budget, so I would say, varied budget would be just doing everything from Canva and DIY and kind of cobbling it together. There's no shame in that, but recognize that that's a very short-term solution to a situation that's going to need long-term strategy and growth. Mid-level, I would say probably somewhere between, a logo or a branding suite could cost, $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000. Copywriting really varies. Website design could be, I've seen probably smaller businesses charge maybe $5,000 or $6,000 for a website, not including, all the integrations and all of, the booking and all of that kind of, those types of things. Like I said, we're on the higher end of the so we definitely, our sites start at 10, strategy, can be as, equal to that. Branding is usually around 5 or 6 or so. It really depends. There are such a wide range of vendors. So I think it really depends on making sure that the owner makes the connection with the company and understands that they totally have the tools and the experience to tell that story and to make sure that it's, being effective for their client.
Yeah. I just think that's so important though, because oftentimes I see people who spend the budget on the building and they don't leave a lot of room, even on the pro forma, appropriately for marketing. Even for things like maybe advertising has a line item, but
Sure.
you might be thinking of Google ads, Facebook ads, and then some platforms like, Wedding Pro and Here Comes the Guide, etc.
Right.
But the problem is it's like that selling yourself short because you're not actually building in the budget to hire in a team, and you've spent all this money on this incredible facility, but no one's showing up, and you're kind of like, what's happening here? I put together my free GoDaddy website with my templates and the things, and that, like you said, can kind of get you in the door. But
Right.
I would encourage people, if you do have the capability and you're starting from scratch, to build yourself in a budget that actually allows you to create this virtual side.
Right.
And, kind of like taking that capital side into account. So you mentioned a couple of different things. You mentioned the logo design. You mentioned the, parts of the creative, the copy that needs to go on the website design. I heard you separate out. So for anyone who's brand new to this, website design, how is that separate from kind of the total experience of building a website, say on Squarespace or wherever? Could you kind of walk us through the website design process?
Well, can I back up a little bit, actually?
Yeah.
So, if you think about it, every wedding tells a story, right? And so the venue is the stage for that story. So when venues are thinking of, they've spent $1 million to build the property. I don't know how much it costs. I'm sure it's a lot, right? So if they thought about that and they haven't allocated the time and the resources and the money to actually think about the storytelling that happens when someone comes to, for example, their website, right? So if you're not utilizing visual storytelling, you are ultimately telling a story. The website, for example, is telling a story of your property without you even being there. Now, whether or not it's a good one or not, that's where, hiring an expert and really understanding the power of utilizing storytelling. And storytelling is, obviously your branding and all of that. Like, is the photography resonating? Is the user experience good? Like, when they land on the site, what are they greeted with, right? Like, all of those details are that is selling your venue without you being there. So whether or not they are leaving, and of course, analytics would tell you this, where they're leaving within the process of looking at your site. So I wanted to stop you there because I always like to, you can kind of silo the things, right? The tangible things, like the logo is one and the colors are another and all that. But really it's the whole story together is what's going to help attract the right type of couple for your.
Yeah. Or repel. Yeah. There's two different examples that come to mind. One is a project that we're working on. And as we looked at the website, the owners have a foundation that they run and that the property helps support.
Okay.
It's prominently located on the site, and they work with disabled, children with disabilities. It's an incredibly noble, philanthropy that they have going on, but it's very confusing when you come to the website because you don't know, are you on a website for a nonprofit organization or are you on a website for a wedding venue? Like, are we getting married here or are we donating money? Like, we don't know.
Exactly. And it also, it's confusing to the viewer, like, what is their top priority? Is that this venue, the foundation. The foundation should have its own website, right? Like, you can certainly say something on the bottom or in your about page or whatever, highlight that. That is part of that storytelling, right? This venue owner, and part of their own personal brand too, right? Like, this venue, the venue owners, are very philanthropic. They clearly care about the community. All of those things are important. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I'd have to see it, but I can pretty much tell, like, why is this here?
Yeah, totally. I'll have to show you later. You'll have a lot of things to say about it, but I think that speaks to what we're talking about here, which is kind of a very comprehensive view of, it's not just, let's make sure that you get a logo kit from somebody and kind of stick it up in the top left or wherever you're going to put it. Let's actually make sure that it tells a comprehensive story about the venue. So let's talk about that story a little bit. What specifically for venues and when you work with clients, what is the story? Is this a personal story of the owner? Is this like, what story should we be telling?
So maybe a good example of this would be, a couple of years ago, we worked with Camp Lucy, which is a award-winning property based in Texas Hill Country. It's just outside Austin, if you're not familiar with it. And I'll tell you a little bit of the story, which is that when we were hired, we worked with them, the company, Whim Hospitality. When we worked with them, we first did their own hospitality website. Then we were brought on to do Camp Lucy. And originally it was, okay, please make this site more interesting. We're already booking a lot of weddings. We have the amazing lodging on the property, and no one is really utilizing that during the week. So we, originally we're like, well, we can design websites in our sleep. That's no problem, right? But the marketing director was like, no, you have to come down and experience it. When I got there, and I had not been to that area, I didn't even know if I'd ever been to Texas before. So I'm driving there and I get to see Texas Hill Country and the Golden Hills, and it kind of feels like Napa. But then when you're on the property, it is a totally different experience. So you're there and first of all, you're away from everything. They have I don't know how many hundreds of acres. But the interesting thing is the owner and his wife, or the owners, the husband and wife team, Whit and Kim, they met because Whit was an avid collector, and Kim was, facilitating that. It's failing me with the words of what she did, but she was also an event planner. So this property that is in his family, basically, so there's a familial story behind it. So even some of the property names have family name, Lucy's Cabin or something like that. But in addition, the property itself is like being at an art museum. It is filled with Vietnamese art from all over from Asia, from their collection that they created together. So there's that personal story there of them meeting, falling in love, both being art collectors. She's an event planner. They join, they make this amazing property together. And then the property itself is literally created from pieces of, post-colonial architecture in Vietnam that he had shipped over to Austin or to Dripping Springs, and then built these amazing facilities. So each one of the properties itself, the venues within the property, have stories in them themselves. So once I got there, I was like, there is so much here to tell beyond just this is a beautiful wedding venue in Dripping Springs, Texas, just like all the other ones, right? That could have been how it went. But when we went there, we saw that there was a whole narrative behind this that they weren't capitalizing on. And so that's how we were able to make their site.
Well, I love it. And it's the interesting thing here. I have two questions as a result of this. Okay. One is, in an environment where the amount of weddings being held per year are kind of consistent, but as we know, there are more and more wedding venues opening, right? So our demand is kind of constant, our supply is increasing. This is a huge opportunity for venue owners to stand out, because and to kind of distance themselves from either newcomers, or the opportunity for newcomers in the industry to kind of upset the status quo if you're coming into a new market by telling a really incredible story or having some of these unique elements and then showcasing them.
Right.
I was just on a podcast with someone who was in the luxury space, and she was sharing all about how, you not only have to do luxury things, have luxury events and do that, but you have to showcase it, because if you don't showcase it, you're not going to get that clientele.
Right.
Is this in a market like Dripping Springs, which has so many wedding venues?
Right.
What are some of the ways that you help a venue, maybe in a very congested market, really stand out?
So we always start first with strategy. And I think, a lot of people just immediately want to go to the design, right? Again, the tangible thing is the branding, the logo, all of that. But making sure that, first of all, you understand what their values are, what the experience is going to be, what the style of the property is and all of these things. But also, like, what is it like when you're a couple there? Like, when I go there, for example, let's just say your venue is LGBTQ inclusive, but on your website, the copy doesn't mention that, which is not great for SEO, for starters. And the photos are all of straight couples, right? And there's not a mix of photography. Well, that's an instant turnoff, right? And particularly, I think venues now, as new ones come on, and as we start to, obviously I'm Gen X, right? I've just dated myself, but I've long been married, right? So I'm not necessarily their target customer unless I'm getting married again. Millennials, obviously, they're getting older too. And now you've got Gen Z. Well, Gen Z, like, they do not just want a space, they want an experience. And so particularly in the luxury space, experience is everything, like from start to finish. And are they doing a destination? Do you have lodging on property? Then they can do a whole destination wedding. Are you talking about that and showing that on your site, on your marketing materials, when you're talking to luxury event planners and trying to sell them, hey, this is a venue we want to be on your client's radar? So it all plays in together. Like, the couple, when they go to the venue, they want to feel like, this is my space. You have a limited time to catch them. Like I think I said earlier on the thing, they have like 7 seconds. This is when people start to make decisions about website experience.
And it's on mobile. So you've got a small screen.
I have a phone. Exactly. And it's on your phone. So, I mean, that's even more challenging, a little bit more challenging.
So Heidi, let's take this kind of on the other side of it, not the luxury side. Talking to kind of the average couple who has maybe $20,000 to $40,000 to spend, so kind of mid-range, not super budget, but certainly not luxury or higher end. They are putting a premium on the experience, like you just said, but maybe they don't have the budget to, they just can't, because they physically don't have the budget to create this incredible, elaborate experience. Do you see those clients? Like, do you work with clients that are serving that market, or are you primarily working with clients that are serving a luxury market?
Yeah, so our clients are predominantly in the luxury space based on just the connections that we've had over, those 16 years. And there goes my dog. No, over the 16 years of us working together. So, but in terms of, I think that the importance of storytelling as a whole, and again, in branding, all the ways that social media, all the ways that it touches, is the same. Whether or not you are, a smaller mid-market venue, or, you're working with the Mindy Weisses of the world, like, the goal of that should still be the same. The couple should be able to see themselves at this property and really make that connection. Again, with the photography, with the branding, with the copy, with the social experience, with the social media, all of it should feel, you should know that customer, right? Mm-hmm. If you are not a luxury market, then you're not going to show those types of images on your site. You're going to show images of, couples that are getting married in that, $20,000 to $40,000 range, which is a lot of those weddings in the world. That's probably most of them. So, you just have to know your customer. And when couples work, or when vendors work with us, we always start with strategy. We know who those customers are so that we're producing things that communicate that to them.
Let's even boil this down more. And I know this is probably not the clientele that you touch, but I'm curious if someone's listening to this right now and they maybe have a warehouse space in downtown Chicago, or they have maybe like a more standard event hall or like community gathering hall. Do any of these branding discussions even apply? Or is this, because that model is so different and you're more selling space rather than experience, does a lot of this advice kind of go out the window?
Wait, what was that question?
Like, if I am listening to this right now and I own a community hall or something that doesn't necessarily have the character of something like a Camp Lucy, it's basically 4 walls. You're putting some draping up. Does the branding and the marketing advice that we're talking here go out the window because it only applies to higher clientele? Or can we still add elements of that in a very simplified space?
No, I mean, like I said, the selling the story of your property. So let's just say it is a simple, maybe not a community hall, but like, a warehouse, right? So then what you're selling is possibility. You're selling the availability that this space can be whatever you want it to be. You want to bring in food trucks and a piñata and, you want a rave experience, and you're doing your cousin's a DJ and whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the space for you. If, you want to have, the focus is your grandparents, are able to come to the wedding, and they're very ill and we're going to make the space special for you. Maybe you have rentals, on property or comfy chairs and stuff. I mean, I'm spitballing here, but the point is, like, if you have a space that is maybe very kind of generic, then capitalize on the fact that it can be changed into whatever you want. Now, whether or not the couple has an event planner and all of those things, which tend to be more of a luxury experience, that's not so much your concern. It is just talking about the space as if this can be whatever you want it to.
Got it. I love that.
That makes sense.
It totally does. It totally does.
Okay.
And I wanted to clarify that because I think, our podcast is oftentimes the starting place for people who are starting to look in the industry, as a source of inspiration. And so I'm curious, when someone is thinking about marketing or branding and they're looking at their budget and they're looking at their space, this could really resonate with someone who's building an incredible place that has imported, exported, this, that. Like, we have a venue that has, they spent $3 million on a stone chapel, and it's imported stone from Italy. And there's a whole story behind the creation of it and how
But we're talking about that stone and that story.
Exactly. But then some people, are calling me from Baltimore saying, I have this little space. How do we? So I just wanted to kind of clarify the guidance that you're giving is as applicable to those smaller, more simple spaces as they are to, imported Vietnamese structures and things like that.
I know not everybody is a Camp Lucy, but I mean, like I said, I think I think people connect with emotions, right, and not just facts. So all the obvious things you need to showcase the floor plan, and you need to let them know, all of the logistics. We've got this much in rentals, and all, that's obviously, to me, that is obvious, low hanging fruit. But being able to talk about your venue so that the couples can feel themselves there. And again, understanding who your target market is really important. Some venues, like you're mentioning, they might have a wide variety of types of couples and clients and price point and all of that. So you have to be, there's a genericness to it, right? But you also using good photography, making sure that the experience is really good when someone picks up the phone and wants to book a tour. What is the tour like? Are you making sure that the couple feels welcome and you're answering all their questions and you're very knowledgeable? Like, honestly, down to those touch points is so important. So whether or not you have a huge budget or you have, a little budget, like, you just want to be mindful of those things regardless.
Heidi, you said something earlier that kind of made me think. Oftentimes when you bring in an expert like you are looking at someone's website or someone's personal brand with different and obviously more professional eyes than the owner themselves. And this happened to me recently. I was on a call with somebody and he pulled up my Instagram, my personal Instagram, and he said, "Oh, so I see here." And he started, and I was like, "Oh man, that's an old link." And wow, nope, I don't do that anymore. And, oh yeah. And he said, "Oh wow, most of this is like family pictures." And I was thinking about it going, how often as venue owners and operators do we have broken links on our social media? Do we have incorrectly sized images and videos that maybe take us to YouTube and then splash a different page for us? Like some of these things, but then think that we're doing a good job with our branding or our marketing.
Right.
Right. Well, I think when, when venue owners are on social media, you do have to think about that as part of your personal brand. And it can impact, not always, but it can impact if a couple is doing their due diligence and they're starting to kind of poke around and see stuff. I mean, I know I would be. They're paying attention to that too. I will say I am like cobbler's children have no shoes. So I have a whole team. I have a amazing social media manager. I have a designer. I have all of it. And I am like my own social media. So I'm at the Spitfiregirl and I'm doing I'm working, but I'm so busy working with clients that I'm not the best at doing my own work, but I try.
I was going to say, you're making the clients work. And no, that makes so much sense. And it was kind of like what this guy was saying to me. I was like, well, no. Let's not look at my social media. Let's look at like the venues, because this is
right. It's not about me. It's about you.
Exactly. So Heidi, when talking about marketing and branding, what are maybe a couple of things that you really wish people knew when it came to marketing and branding that maybe even frustrate you when you're talking with clients, onboarding them, and kind of helping them get to their future desired state? What are some things you're constantly bumping into that you wish people knew?
Oh gosh. That strategy is important. Well, okay. Again, like I said, we are on the higher end of agencies that some of your listeners might listen to. But what I would say is that, even venues with big budgets necessarily will still fight you on kind of basic things. So I'm working on a project right now. I'm not going to name drop, but I'm working on a project also ironically in Texas, other side of the state. And they hired us to do wedding marketing strategy. But to get to the strategy portion of the project was really challenging. And they were like, "Why does this cost so much?" I can tell you everything you need to know in 3 hours. And I was like, I can't even, do one portion of this in my pinky for that amount of time. And they just really didn't understand that what reason why strategy, A, they needed it, and B, why it would cost so much. So I will say that is the first thing is like people kind of think, well, it's like baked into the cake. Like, no, it is its own thing. And it is so important and so time consuming. I mean, I can't tell you how many interviews we've done with, researching other vendors, competition, indirect competition, ideal vendors that they want to attract. This is a brand new venue. No one knows about it yet. And it is in a very remote place. So connections are everything. And now they're on, obviously they signed up for it. So now they're on board with it. But, that's probably my biggest thing is that they don't understand that strategy is really it's the foundation of everything that we do.
Totally. So if you're open to it, could we dive a little bit deeper on that? Because I'm wondering, for someone who just heard that or watched it on YouTube and said, yeah, like, okay, but they're not convinced yet, right? Maybe they're like that client that they're still like, yeah, you're totally right. Strategy is important. All right, let's get to actually like, what are my brand colors going to be, right?
Right.
Right. Because that is kind of very tangible, I think. And you even acknowledged that before. Like, that's what people latch onto.
Yeah, it's a deliverable.
Exactly. What are the deliverables? Great. When are we getting those by? And you're like, well, let's rewind here. We need to know a little bit more before we can even get there. So
Right.
why, just kind of in a nutshell, I know you said it positions everything else, but really, could you break down for us why strategy is so important?
Oh gosh. So strategy, I'll kind of reference this client that I have in West Texas. So, and hopefully I'll answer your question as I'm kind of talking about it. Well, first of all, when they talked to me, they were like, again, why does strategy cost so much? And then I kept going back to them. I'm like, if you knew how to market this property, you wouldn't have contacted me in the first place. Now, again, that is a little boastful, but this is what 16 years of experience show up as, right? I said, look, I've got the connections, I've got the experience that I can see what is already working and what is not working and what could be future opportunities and also concerns for you. So laying out that groundwork for you. So again, if you are starting a property from scratch, wouldn't you rather know, early on, this could be a problem if we address it now. This can be so much, we can make so much more money down the line. Putting in the investment in the beginning to know the groundwork of where you need to go, who you need to target. You could be throwing money at, I know that this is always like kind of a live wire, but maybe a vendor's like, I'm going to throw all my money at wedding wire or the knot, when really their market is actually over here. The ideal couples are here. They're on TikTok and Instagram. Maybe your money should be spent making quality content that attracts them, right? Like take them through the journey of building the property. I think I heard one of your interviewers was really interesting, and I apologize, I cannot remember. I think they might have been in Texas also, actually. And they were talking about doing those hard hat tours and how that was how they were able to start booking stuff. They were honest about it. They said, look, we are still building the property, but we're going to take you along that journey. And again, part of that is also part of personal branding, right? The owners are taking you through the process of building, the ups and downs. And, today we finished the pool or whatever, is it helping people just follow along? And then they get invested in that. So, that does take time, obviously, whether you've hired a team or you're doing it yourself, but it is, again, telling that story of the property that's making a couple, more interested and intrigued. And again, it might be too long for a certain couple based on when they're getting married, but the event planner might be watching it. The photographer might be like, hey, there's a cool property coming online. I might start mentioning this to my couples. Like, I have those things, there's micro bit up.
Yeah. I want to mention someone on here just as a nod to how good she's doing with this. Her name's Deidre. She has a venue called Half Moon Empire, and also in Texas. But all roads, exactly. I was born in Texas. There we go. She has done, and I want to mention her because she's done such a good job bringing people along in the process. And I'm just saying that because she's brought me along in the process. And, work with her, like I just, bumped into her kind of in the industry, but it's been so cool every time when I open my Instagram and I see her story and I see her, she's taking me through the process of creating the venue. I mean, I remember when she was posting concept boards of the lodging, and then it came to her going and picking out the upholstery for the thing. And then it went to, and so I'm very invested. I mean, I'm mentioning it on the podcast, right? And you're totally right. Planners.
And now I'm going to go check her out.
And now you're going to check her out, right? But that's so important. And it's so important because you don't know, like we as a industry collectively, it's not just about like the only repeat opportunity I guess we have is with our fellow vendors, because hopefully we're not, having the same couples get married every couple of years. So that's where we get kind of I think the impact of that story that we're building and kind of to be a top competitor and be able to charge what we need to charge and all of that comes into play. How important is personal branding for venue owners, do you think? I know we kind of just teased this a little when we first started. But
I think you gave a great example of the woman you just mentioned, right? Like if she is a, solopreneur, or maybe she's with her partner or husband or whatever, and they're opening up this venue, and you mentioned earlier about the venue with the Italian stone, right? Like, you said there's a story behind that. So a venue owner, and again, this, really plays out mostly in social media, but like I wouldn't necessarily say I would share this on their website unless they have a blog, and you could certainly do it that way. But really, to me, this feels like Instagram, TikTok content, really. And so if you think about walking a visitor to your page through the journey of creating this property, right? Like why did you create this story? Why did you create this venue? Well, what's the name? Again, I mentioned Camp Lucy. Camp Lucy is, Whit's grandmother. So there's a story behind that. And the house on the property, the little one that you can rent, is like, what's the house that he would spend his summers in? And the rolling hills and all of that. But I think that, I think it's important. I think it depends more how big the venue is. If it is, the venue owners and it's the only property, or maybe they own two or something, where you're going to make connections with them on site versus like the director of sales and marketing. I wouldn't necessarily focus on that, but I think that it helps. I certainly think it can't hurt unless you're doing it wrong. Like unless you're posting something that's offensive or whatever, I would be mindful of those types of things. If you are going to be on social media, be mindful of, what you're, it's a challenging time in the world. Let's put it that way. So, be mindful of what you share and make an impact on your business, venue or design studio or podcast, whatever it is, like the role.
Yeah. And in an interesting way, you want to be careful with that stuff, but I can imagine for authors and for pretty much anyone who is in a public space, to be public and to have some level of fame is to be polarizing in some sense.
Sure.
And I think it's an interesting, I think the intentionality is what a lot of people don't grab onto, because they might be unintentionally polarizing, and you're like, what's going on here? Like, do you understand what you're saying? Versus saying, hey, this is my market, this is my audience, this is really who I'm trying to serve, and speaking that, you know what I mean? When you talk to vendors, so kind of switching a little bit, going in the vendor direction and how they relate to venues, do you feel like the branding really matters? Like, and I guess I'm saying the branding because a lot of what the vendor does in relation to the venue, and we're obviously all about the venue here on the Venue RX, but when it comes to photography and when it comes to planning and things like that, how important is it for those kind of trades or niches within this industry as a whole? How important is it, the branding that they put forward when it comes to the relationship they have with the venue?
Just to clarify, when the branding of the vendor or the vendor?
Vendor. Is this
You have the venue making a decision to choose a vendor based on their branding?
Correct.
I mean, I'm not a venue owner, so I can't speak to that exactly. But what I would say is, the quality of the work that they're doing hopefully speaks for themselves. And in terms of how a venue, a director of sales and marketing, an owner, or a couple or anyone else that might collaborate, like how they experience that when they go to their site. We do website audits. Like, it's like my favorite thing to do. And so when we'll do actually a brand audit, so we'll audit everything from branding, social media to any ads that they're doing, their website, et cetera. We look at it as a whole. So I would encourage if anyone, obviously contact us if they ever want to do that, but you can do it on your own by gathering up all that information and going, what story am I telling when you look at everything together? We recently spoke at WeWed, which is a conference in South Florida over the summer. And I ended up doing live audits while I was on stage. I mean, I had gotten the information in advance and I laid everything out. And then I started walking through, and there was one of the vendors, was a photographer, and he, I believe was Christian or Catholic, and focused on, that was part of his narrative. And his site was beautiful. Actually, it was, of all the sites that I saw, I said, look, I really don't have much to say against this. Really gorgeous. But it was very interesting in the room to talk about, what was okay to say, what was, he was interested in attracting couples that he aligned with, right? That were spiritual, that were, he had certain kind of like rituals that he would do during the ceremony, things he would capture, et cetera. And so, all of that plays into what couple is going to hire them, what event planner might feel comfortable working with him, et cetera. And so to answer your question, hopefully I'm doing this, I think that it is important for a venue to pay attention to how this potential vendor, again, event planner, florist, photographer, rentals, whatever, how they're showing up online. Are they showing recent work? That's usually one that's falls by the wayside, right? College children, right? They never end up updating their site. So I think it's important to pay attention to that. I mean, it's how you show up online. And then, of course, how you do your job, right? That's the most important thing, is like when you get there, like, are you doing a good job? Are you couples?
Yeah, no, you answered it perfectly. And I think I asked it maybe a little funky, but I was trying to get to the idea that if you don't know who you're working with, it's hard to do a good job.
Oh, right. You mean how they're communicating it online?
Yeah, exactly. And both from the vendor and so to your example of the photographer who kind of had a certain angle of clientele that he wanted to work with, if you have a venue that primarily works with not that clientele, and then you add that person to your vendor list, now all of a sudden they're getting the stream of clients that they're not really interested in getting.
Exactly. And it all, you just want to make sure that cohesive is my favorite word, right? Like things to be cohesive. So, and holistic, everything feels holistic and cohesive. And so, again, to your point, like if you work with X type of clients and that's, you're doing grunge style, warehouse weddings or whatever, like your vendor list should reference that. Right.
Yeah. We had someone, in the industry who I know who owns a venue, also in Texas, and he and his husband operate the venue together. It's a family property, and it's been in the guy's family for a long time. And so he, met and married his partner, and I don't know if they got married at the venue or not, but they really speak to that audience. And I think they do a great job of highlighting those things. They had different open houses, different themes, but a lot of the theme really angles towards a same-sex couple. And I think they do that really well, and I think intentionally, because it's part of their identity. So it's kind of, you get to serve your community. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about our industry. You get to serve people who you want to, but also people that you have a heart for and a passion for. And it's one of the neat things about what we do, because we meet people, humans, couples at these like critical junctures.
I mean, it's such a big day in their life, right?
Yep. I wanted to kind of wrap up with one thing. When you're talking about brand audits, website audits you just mentioned, as you're going through these, are there some really key offenders that you commonly see? Maybe things that you can, that someone listening or watching today can take to the bank and audit their own sites or social media accounts for?
Sure. Well, like I said, you want to look at all the ways couples, your clients, whoever they are. And this could be applicable for anybody, right? Like, they're an author, they're a bank, whatever. It doesn't matter. All the ways that your potential customers can find you. So screen captures, all of the things, go to your website, for example. I would be shocked. So you asked me kind of industry offender for broken links constantly. The contact. I just actually, one of my clients, like we did their site a couple of years ago and I got an autoresponder and she said, we'll be out of the office for whatever, a week or something. You can reach out to us by using the contact button. I checked and the contact link was broken. Not on the site, but the link that they used to send them. It was like, there was an extra space. Even your emails, like, what does your message sound like on your voicemail? Are you utilizing a link in bio type thing for social media so that you only, you're not just pointing, that's very valuable real estate. Don't just send them to one place, right? Like make a landing page on your own website with all of the links that you want. And then you're capturing that SEO goodness too. Stuff like that. I would say broken links is probably one of the biggest ones. And for social media, I see a lot of wedding. This would be not so much venues, but like event planners featured in Vogue, that, and then in their bio, and then we'll have the @ symbol, which makes it the live link, and then sends them to Vogue. I'm like, don't give away that valuable real estate. You need to be talking about yourself and the clients that you serve in that little, you got 150 characters on Instagram, 80 on TikTok. That's really valuable real estate. You need to be making sure that you're talking to that person and not sending them elsewhere. Oh, okay. Last big offender. Sorry. I get very excited about this, as you can tell. People on their website, let's just say they have a blog, and they feature they do a real wedding, and they smartly have all the vendors that are listed, right? But the links don't open to a new page. They open within the same browser window. You lost that person. That person is gone. Now you've given the site, you've given their time on the browsing time to now that other vendor, because they would have to press the back button. However,
say that again, because I think it's really important. And I just missed it there. So are you saying you click, so real wedding, boom, click.
Let's just do press. Let's use press. Maybe press as an example. You have a press page. You were featured in People magazine, whatever you did. Someone got married on your property. Great. Amazing, right? You click on the, however your designer has laid it out, right? You've got the logo, and then maybe there's a photo of the couple and a little booklet. You click on that and it opens in the same browser window. You see what I mean? Versus opening a new window. So if they open in a new window, your browser tab is still here. So they can still find you. And then, here's the People press. If they don't and they just click this, it doesn't open in a new window. It's in that existing window and they're gone. So you've lost that time. Like they were listening to things that you're telling them and showing them on your site. And now you've lost them because it refreshed in the same window.
Totally. Totally. 100%. And even if they're on,
I see that probably the most in Boca.
Yeah. Okay. That makes so much sense. Because, and also if they're on mobile, then it opens up a new tab. But then even if you swipe the tab away or you kind of exit it out or whatever, you'll still have the tab of your venue. So you're still up there. Yeah.
Same experience, it's just even smaller.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, those are really, really good. So everyone watch out. And I found a broken link. So that guy who I was telling you was kind of like looking at he was like, oh yeah, this Kajabi link doesn't. And guess what it was? I went on as an educator panel on a summit and I had the link of that, and that link, they had deactivated it or something had happened, and I hadn't clicked on it recently, and it was broken. So he was like, and there's a broken link here. And I was like, what? So case in point, it can happen
to the best of
it
us.
happens to all of us. Yeah. So go check your links. Heidi, this has been really great. We've kind of, I wanted to have a kind of a really general conversation about marketing and branding and kind of some of these friction points that I think people have. And this has been really helpful and insightful. And so I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share about Spitfire.
Great.
Yeah.
I have to do another episode. Well, I have so many things to talk about.
Definitely. That'd be great. If you, if someone is listening to this and they want to reach out, obviously we're going to have links into all of your, sources, resources and all that in the description. But if there's like one place you'd really like people to go, that's maybe the easiest to connect with you at, where should that be?
Oh, I would love a little love on Instagram would be great. So it's the Spitfiregirl. I always have to spell it. It's SPITFIREGIRL. So the Spitfiregirl on Instagram, and hopefully that will make me show up more. And SpitfireGirlDesign.com is our website. I'd love to reach out and
Amazing.
anybody there.
All right, everyone. Well, let's go give Heidi a little love on her Instagram. And thank you so much for coming on again. This was great.
It was so great. And again, your that project I mentioned in Texas, your podcast has been a great resource of information for that. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. All right, we'll talk to you real soon.
Take care.
Hey there, pardon the interruption. I wanted to take a moment and share with you about WEVA. WEVA is a professional association we started last year for venue owners and operators. It stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it's the first professional association for venue owners and operators, specifically providing resources, education, and networking opportunities for venue owners and operators. Let's face it, owning a venue is very difficult, and if you own or operate a venue, or if you're considering owning or operating a venue, you need resources, networking, and a community that understands and supports you and your goals as you continue to grow your business. WEVA is just that. We've built it to be a support to you as you grow your venue business, and we want you inside of our community. So if this sounds interesting to you, please click on the link in the description in this video or wherever this video is linked, and we would love to welcome you into the community.